Hello, hello. We're back again. Going to take a look at Plant Geezer's latest video. Vegan activist attacked by angry abattoir boss. Looks like a lively one. Jesus. Looks like a good one. Very true. Funding activism is activism. This guy goes hard. Did we recognise this person from a previous video? Did he know who this guy was? I felt like that was the first thing that happened. It's pretty wild. Oh yeah, Lambretta, that's a classic. I think that is why this guy has, like, specifically goes to some halal places, because people like are like, oh, you wouldn't go to a halal place, right? I mean, yeah, there's people imagine that there's going to be much more of a difference there than there is. The main thing about halal, I thought, was that there was non-stun slaughter, but that is no longer the case. Most halal slaughtered animals are permitted to be stunned now, I believe. Hey, Kerry, do you really? Oh, that's based. Jesus. God, they're so packed in. Oh, that's awesome, Gary. Interesting. Yeah, of course, there's no halal pork, right? Jesus. I like his style of kind of, he sort of just walked on, and he sort of looks like he knows what he's doing, I guess, and no one is accosting him on this case. I think, do you know what you should do is wear a high vis? You wear a high vis vest, you can get away with anything. Carry a clipboard as well, you'll be shown around. I wonder if he gave a real name there. Kind of looked like he was lying somehow. Kind of sounds like a made up name. God, I have pressed all the workers. Look at them. I mean, what a grim job. This is nobody's first choice for a job, is it? They have some of the highest staff turnover places like this. A lot of people just don't want to do it. And a lot of people underestimate how grim it's going to be. They think they'll have the stomach for it, and they don't, or the heart for it, perhaps. Ugh. the people at these places often seem they don't like having the spotlight on them. They don't. It's as if he's holding a mirror up, and somebody outside of this context is coming into it and going, "What the fuck is going on here?" It's pretty easy to allow it to feel normal if you work there. Certainly if you bloody own the place, right? I mean, this guy can't think about a vegan perspective or he'll lose his mind. You have to have thoroughly devalued and commodified the animals to get to this point. Like how he's very like interacts very normally with them. You kind of expect the blokes to be like, yeah, it's a bit grim, yeah. It's just fair. It's very disarming. Hey, how he kind of plays dumb about the whole thing. He's not coming on here as if he's an animal activist. He's just coming on as if he's lost his drone and just happens to be horrified by this stuff, which is very much. It's making these guys uncomfortable. I feel they're like, well, all right, well, this is what I do. This is what I do. This guy cannot fucking think about that. They're not babies. It's such a. You see, it becomes the other person's fault. Like, all he's done is said, what's going on in here? That's disgusting, that's vile. And how old are these babies? You're trying to force me to say things. Like, this is how a guilty person behaves in an interrogation. It's so. It's such a mirror. I can only imagine that after they have a day like this at work, these people go home and they're like, it prompts some reflection, right? One would hope. Not really, no. It's not particularly well paid either. Look at him running after. I love it when they try and run after him. He's literally turned up to his place of work. Kind of are doing something physical over there. I mean, he has got that on tape. I like that in this guy's view is like, well, if I assault him, then technically that'd look really bad. But he's kind of. I mean, he got one skim away from this, right? But it's just not registering in his mind that this is already violence. Thanks for the shower, Humphrey. Tell me if that's better. Sort of seen everything at this point, anyway, hasn't he? You're making us worse. All things. Why is there 3 of them like behind this little bit of fence here? This is bizarre. Probably would constitute assault what we just saw. I wonder what's the legality of this kind of stuff. I mean, I guess he's trespassing at this point. Are you guys not getting audio from the video at all?
How old's that one? Absolutely disgusting. How would you feel? How would you feel if it was you getting forced to?
Did that fix it? I'm on a new computer, so I'm sort of setting up OBS as I go here.
Towards your death at a small percentage of your life.
If I was a sheep, I'd love it.
Oh, you'd love it, would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sitting there with all blood over your cap. Do you know what I mean? It's disgusting.
Do you not work?
These are the bullies.
Do you not work?
I work 16 hours a day, mate.
Well, you're not working today.
I am. I'm working in a bit. This is
Hey Jamie, how's it going? Hey Tone, good to see you. I'm Retta Humphrey. You know, the whole gang's here.
his work.
Ah!
This is my work.
That's a good job, isn't it?
It's better than chopping fucking lambs' heads off, isn't it?
I can't believe I was watching this with no audio for 12 minutes. Damn, sorry guys. I'm on the new computer though, so we're not going to have any more stream crash outs. That's the bright side.
It's better than exploiting the vulnerable.
Who do you work for?
Who do you work for? Are you the gaffer?
Yes.
Have you always exploited the vulnerable, the defenceless? Would you exploit the animals that could fight back? You wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't try it with a more able creature, would you? Admit it. It's only these
What
little
did
babies.
they do without cameras? What did they used to do without cameras?
Oh, mate, if I was
What kind of a comment is this? I mean, what kind of... There's no response to the question at all. He couldn't really... It's like I can't start to process that because that's not going to go well. God, these people are like zombies. Like they're walking around, their souls are gone. Look at this guy's eyes on the right here. It's like, I know this is fucked.
was born back in the day, I'd have some right fun, trust me.
You know how many
In
people
fact-
are?
in
How
fact,
many people are?
Cameras are our worst nightmare.
Listen. How many people are attached with the farming?
Pardon?
How many people in the country is attached with the farming?
How many people?
How many
Attached.
attached
to
with the
Oh,
farming?
how many people are attached to exploitation?
No.
To
How
bullying?
many people?
Lots of people. This
You have
country
a,
is full of
tape.
bullies.
You
Yeah.
have a tape. You keep going. You don't listen to anybody.
I'm listening. Go on.
Now, how many people is do farming in the country?
Lots.
So if they don't sell the sheep, what else they gonna do?
Not bully sheep.
What they gonna do with the sheep?
Sell plants. Sell something else.
Plants.
Yeah. Stop exploiting the vulnerable and chopping heads off. Would be a good start, wouldn't it? I mean, what are them 3 doing on their own? They're locked in that cage. What are they doing? Why are them 3 separate to the others? Last time I come here, I found a dead sheep in that shed there. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely disgusting.
Have you got nothing better to do?
Have you got nothing better to do than chop sheep's heads off?
No.
Is it what you love? I don't know. You sleep, man. You're bullying animals for a living, and you're saying that Arnie.
He does kind of look ashamed, right? He else these kind of things like He's looking at the ground.
I don't know. You sleep, man. You're bullying animals for a living, and you're saying that I need to get a proper job. Do you know what I mean? Just think if that was you. Just think if that was somebody's pet or person getting. It doesn't matter who you are. You're a living being trapped in a fucking fence, about to get your neck sliced open.
Listen, you have to go out. I have to lock the gate.
I'm going now, but I just want to know how you can sleep at night, knowing that you
We
easy.
will work for our food and we will sleep well, better than you.
Pardon?
We make our
Well, he's
bread
working
from it.
he works 16 hours a day, so
I don't
he's
think
sure to
he
be
will-
tired. He'll be tired when he's...
I'll be absolutely knackered, but I'll carry on.
Like 16 minutes.
Have you
then
got any jobs going?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't. Have you?
Well, I
bet-
wouldn't mind working for you at 16 hours a day.
I
You get good money.
I bet you've got a lot of jobs going because people don't stick around long, do they? Bullying the defenceless, do they?
Imagine this guy legit quit running a slaughterhouse and signed up to be an activist for Plant Geezer. That was a good, sincere offer.
Do you think we're the only abattoir in the country?
I'll go to them all, mate. I'll go to every single one.
Wait, you go to them all?
Other people are doing it as well. All the other kids were doing it.
Yeah,
Where else you go?
yeah. Well, you tell me. You tell me where I'll go next. You decide the next location.
No. You said you go to them all, so where'd you go?
I'll go to
Besides
all,
here.
I'll come here again.
Where do you go besides here?
I'll go to all different ones.
Which ones?
All different ones.
You don't know any.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Where then?
Well, look, it doesn't matter. I'm here now, innit? And I'm trying to ask you why
Because
you
you've
bullying.
got nothing else to do.
I've got nothing else to do. What do you mean? I've got nothing else
I
to
have
do.
no idea.
Mate, I could go and do anything now. I could go and
Get a job.
I chose to be here. You're acting as though like I'm unemployed and this is my like hobby or something. You think I like coming here to show people
Yeah, I'll mod you up, Tone. Okay, yeah, I seen it. I seen you in here.
the victims of abuse and.
But do you think people care?
I'd love to sit down and have an extended conversation with someone like this. Because I really just it's such deep denial. I feel like if somebody like this did therapy, it'd be like gushing out of them. I would hope, right? I would hope that there's years and decades of suppression of feeling that this is wrong. It seems reflective when asked certain questions. I don't know. I would just love to. It's just inside the head of someone like this is fascinating.
They obviously do, innit?
But go to the butcher shop and see how many people care.
Yeah, they
Go to
would.
the
They wouldn't kill him themselves, though, would they? They wouldn't kill him themselves.
But they eat it.
Yeah, but they wouldn't kill it themselves, would they?
What's that got to do with it?
Because no one is the one true savage. None of you are the one true savage.
Remember who you are. You are not the one true savage.
None of you.
But they all
would-
eat meat.
None of you would attack a
Do you eat
creature. I do not eat meat.
Have you ever had meat?
I have, yeah. Before.
Ah!
Yeah, when I was brainwashed.
So
But no one here.
when you were brainwashed,
Does he kill?
when you were brainwashed, you ate meat. Now
kill
you're
him?
not brainwashed.
You're obviously covered in blood, so you're covered in the blood of
That's
the
my
victims.
blood. I had nosebleed.
Oh yeah, you had a nosebleed, did you?
So,
So basically, what I'm saying is,
so you were brainwashed into eating meat,
yes,
and now you're not brainwashed.
yes, correct.
So who brainwashed you?
Just culture, innit? Our culture tells us to attack the vulnerable.
So you-
our culture tells us to
So
attack.
your parents must have brainwashed you.
Yeah, they were brainwashed as well.
Ah.
But they weren't violent either, so my mum stopped it now as well because she's not the one true savage.
614 number 4.
Right, I'm just going to climb over here. You bullies, you're all bullies. Look at that bully standing there, look.
Dear.
Why don't you attack creatures that can fight back?
Do you think after he leaves and the stuff like, yeah, this is actually a bit fucked, isn't it? Imagine this guy's like, yeah, he's not wrong. Like, do you see the repressed looking workers working there? I mean, imagine.
What is that? What is that sheep?
Well, someone told me last time that Plant Geezer used to work in a slaughterhouse, right?
Gonna do? It's defenceless. It's vulnerable.
Does it look upset?
It will be when it's getting its neck stabbed into, isn't it?
But does it look like it's suffering there?
How old are they? How old are they?
Does it look like it's suffering?
How old are they?
Does it look like it's suffering?
How
yes
old
or
are they?
no?
If you're not going, I'm gonna call the police.
Call the police on me when you're the one attacking sheep.
No, we're not.
So this man's stabbing sheep, and he's going to call the police on me.
Okay, well let's see.
This man's stabbing sheep. Look at that.
But who's illegal?
Look at that.
You for trespassing, or him for doing his job?
I'm not doing nothing illegal.
Because you're
That's not a criminal. That's not a criminal
First thing, you're on
matter.
the private property.
That's not a criminal matter.
You're on private property.
So do you follow all laws? Would you follow laws in another country? Do you know they marry children in Africa? Do you know they marry children in Africa, and that's the law? Would you follow that law? You know what I mean? You just do what you're told, don't you? You can't think for yourself. You just do what you're told.
Yeah, the deferring to law as morality is very like no free will behavior, right? I mean, this is the same with Paul Wood. He like couldn't understand that even if something is legal, it might cause suffering to an animal. It's crazy to interact with the people who have. I mean, we sometimes go off and want to talk about, you know, which strand of utilitarian are you, and it's, you know, it's not too fashionable to be a utilitarian as a vegan and so on. There are people who have just never seriously thought about morality, and that's probably most people, frankly. Is kind of, you see when sometimes people react to vegan activists that we've watched, and they go, "Oh, well, you're talking about moral terms," as if it's some like really niche, really esoteric thing to consider at all. It's very revealing of a lack of meaningful thought about it, right?
Can you go and have to lock the gate, please?
Can I lock the gate?
I have to lock the gate, please go.
It's like being a child. I can remember being a child and being sort of discovering that some bad things were not illegal, and some illegal things are not necessarily bad, right? Laws of different countries and stuff like that. I can remember being a child and exploring these ideas, and some people just never do that.
Say, please.
I've actually got permission to be on this bit to look for my drone.
Permission? He's the boss.
No, the chap who was having a fag here, he said.
Well, yeah, but that bloke who's having a fag here is just a worker.
Yeah, he's just.
I appreciate. Oh yeah, damn, I'm hella quiet. Hey. Okay, let me turn this up here. All right, this should be a little bit better. No, hopefully they're more level.
I need my
I'm
drone.
not just a worker.
I appreciate you guys troubleshooting my audio as we go.
He's the boss.
I'm not just a worker.
He's the boss.
I'm not just a worker.
He's the boss. He on the place.
You're the gaffer.
Yeah.
Top bully.
Yeah.
He's a top bully.
Come on, man. I gotta go lock the gate.
Yeah, don't lock me in though, because that's false imprisonment if you lock me in. Look at that. No, it is.
It's imprisonment.
Yeah.
You're actually quite a nice lad, but it's
I know.
Well,
I'm doing my thing. You're doing your thing. If we met,
it's false imprisonment if we lock you in.
If me and
you're allowed to come in.
I'm going now, but I'm going. But if me and you met in the pub and you wasn't bullying sheep and I wasn't doing this, we'd probably have a beer and talk about the football or something. But the point is, I'm here to show people the bullying and exploitation.
And you'll go to heaven for sure.
I might get to heaven. Depends.
No, you should be.
Do you think you get to heaven?
Not a chance.
So,
I think he's I don't know, has he reached it? Is there anything as bad as about to say? Let's see what he says.
so you're admitting that it's bad?
No, not for that.
So he won't go to heaven, but yeah, okay.
Right,
Cheers,
mate.
lads. Nice one. Watch my ankles.
I really do think there is a little bit of self-awareness of being on the wrong side of history amongst these people. Base Plant Geezer. I'm sure that everyone is familiar with this channel here already. Oh, that's awesome, Tone. Yeah, I met her on. This is quite a funny story. I met the militant vegan on the tube in London, on the Underground, and she was with her partner / camera person. I mean, I guess it's her partner whilst holding a camera. And they had their signs. They had evidently been at some sort of demonstration, right? They had their very provocative vegan signs. And they got onto the tube, and a couple of people were sort of looking sideways at them, rolling their eyes at them, and stuff like that. And of course, as you would expect from the militant vegan, she had something to say, and they started going at it, and I was eating McPlant, but the McPlant had only just recently come out, and I was I was sitting there eating a McDonald's, and so I can't remember if I got involved first or if she said something to me, but she was like, "Look at you fucking there eating your McDonald's," and I was like, "Shit, it's vegan, it's vegan." And people on the tube started laughing. It's like, "Oh, look at this guy's got his McDonald's," and I was like, "Guys, this is actually vegan. I'm on this person's side." As it turns out, we were both going to the same event, which was the premiere of Crime-Spiracy. Yeah, so obviously she didn't know who I was. I didn't know who she was either, but a couple of people asked her for a photo. Yeah, true story. She laid into me properly. I was like, shit. A few people came on the tube and recognized her and asked her for a photo and stuff. And anytime somebody does that, she grills them about not being vegan. They're like these kind of German teenagers that recognized her off TikTok or whatever. "Oh, can we get a picture?" And she starts like telling them off in German. She's so based, honestly. But yeah, she accosted me for eating a McDonald's before she knew it was a vegan one. All right. There's a few good things. There's a few good longer things that I was gonna get into watching this evening. Let's do. Nice. Yeah. Oh, it's on YouTube, is it? I thought it was pretty good, that movie. They sort of do all the religions, and I thought it was quite compelling. Like I've said before, I think the religious angle is a really strong one because people are sort of looking to religion for their morality, so they're expecting to get messages of this genre. Okay, well, I thought about watching this podcast. I think I'm going to watch the Tobias Lennart versus Paul Bashir debate. But let's read Lewis Bollard first. And at some point we probably will watch this interview with Dwarkesh, which turned into the viral FarmKind fundraiser. Not inevitable, not impossible. Why ending the worst abuses of factory farming is an issue ripe for moral reform. I recently joined Dwarkesh Patel's podcast to discuss factory farming. I hope you'll give it a listen and consider supporting his fundraiser for FarmKind's Impact Fund. Dwarkesh is matching all donations up to 250k. Just use the code Dwarkesh. This is sold out, so expired now. This, I think, went within 24 hours or 48 hours. Lot of support in that audience. Very impressive. We discussed two contradictory views about factory farming that produce the same conclusion, that its end is either inevitable or impossible. Neither inevitable nor impossible, right? Oh, sorry, okay, these are the two opposing views, and I guess that he's saying that neither are correct. Alright, I got you. Some techno-optimists assume factory farming will vanish in the wake of AGI, as in artificial general intelligence. Some pessimists see reforming it as a hopeless cause. Both camps arrive at the same conclusion, fatalism. If factory farming is destined to end or persist, then what's the point in fighting it? Yeah, this is like low tractability in EA terms, like whatever we do either way won't make a difference in either of those cases. I think both views are wrong. In fact, I think factory farming sits in the ideal position for moral reform, because its end is neither inevitable nor impossible. It offers a unique opportunity for advocacy to change the trajectory of human moral progress. Yeah, this is a really, really powerful point. I think about this a lot. There are not that many opportunities in the world to be part of some real huge moral revolution that is totally possible within our lifetimes. And this factory farming didn't exist 100 years ago, right? We kind of think of it as this inevitable thing that is, was, and always will be, but it's, you know, barely more than 50 years old. And if we play our cards right, it won't last another 50 years. So there's a real difference that people can make today, which wasn't the case in the past and might not be the case in the future. It's a window of opportunity, and yeah, I agree, it's neither inevitable nor impossible. Not inevitable. Dwarkesh raised an objection to working on factory farming that I often hear from techno-optimists who care about the issue. Isn't its end inevitable? Some cite the long arc of moral progress, others the promise of vast technological change like cultivated meat or artificial general intelligence, which surpasses human capabilities. It's true that humanity has achieved incredible moral progress for humans, but that progress was never inevitable. It was a result of moral and political reform as much as technology. And that moral progress mostly hasn't yet extended to animals. For them, the long moral arc of history has so far only bent downward. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, things have been worse for animals year on year, right? And they'll continue going in the same direction if you take all the net amount of animal farms that is increasing and the number of animals on factory farms that's increasing. It's there's no reason to think that the end of factory farming is inevitable, for sure. Technology may one day end factory farming, just as cars liberated working horses, or it may just expand factory farming further, as it has done so far. Dwarkesh and I discuss how the genetic turbocharging of chickens has already produced an animal so efficient that it's hard to compete with. Will the arrival of AGI be different? Maybe. Perhaps it cracks cultivated meat, or another better way to produce protein. But as Dwarkesh and I discuss, we'll still need to persuade people to eat it, and politicians not to ban it. Thankfully, there's a lot we can do to lower the probability of factory farming's abuses persisting forever, and to accelerate progress towards its extinction. Even ending factory farming a few decades earlier would spare hundreds of billions of animals from lives of suffering. Yeah, this is how I would be thinking about it as well, right? Because it's not, even if you do think it's inevitable that factory farming will come to an end, if you end it 10 years earlier, it's billions and billions more lives, right? So you would want to accelerate that as much as possible. We're trying to just accelerate the end of factory farming as quickly as possible. And that's why we're using every weapon that we have in the arsenal, including the corporate campaigns that we're doing on Fast Action Network, right? Trying to persuade people to reduce their consumption of animal products, ideally to zero, and also funding effective charities that do this work and move things forward. Not impossible. Consider advocates' progress in recent years on 3 iconic cruelties of factory farming. Battery cages. The egg industry adopted cages as the cheapest method of production and the pinnacle of efficiency. It had no plans to ever drop them until advocates won cage-free pledges from major corporations and laws from US states and EU nations. Today, the US hen flock is 47% cage-free, while the EU flock is 62% cage-free. And both regions are on a trajectory to be entirely cage-free. Yeah, we were looking at the graph of this the other day, and it really has been exceptional progress from animal activists on this issue. 47% cage-free. These numbers were like down near zero on those graphs, if you remember, just, I think, a couple of decades ago. So there really has been remarkable progress there. Don't, let's not let that be lost to hopelessness. There really has been, we really can achieve stuff, right? We saw the subway victory the other day. This stuff is live, it's still going on. Here's your chance to make a difference, right? Broiler chickens. The chicken industry had for a century moved in only one direction, towards crowding ever fatter birds ever more closely together. Then advocacy groups won chicken welfare reforms from most British, French, German and Dutch retailers. Last month, French group L214 secured a pledge from the country's largest chicken producer, LDC Group, to adopt major animal welfare reforms for up to 400 million birds annually. Wow. This is a classic big number that is easy to let wash over you. 400 million chickens are going to be better off. Right, this is, what's the population of the UK? Like 70 million? This is like higher than the US population, right? Chick killing. For decades, the egg industry's killing of male chicks seemed immune to reform. Then advocates helped kickstart in ovo sexing technology, which is already used for 28% of EU hens and just arrived in the US. Today, chick killing is on a path to eventual extinction. Collectively, these reforms have already reduced the suffering of over 1 billion animals. Given their permanence, they will reduce the suffering of more than another billion every year, or over 10 billion within a decade. And they'll further tilt the trajectory away from ever more cruelty in the world. Few other social movements can count their impact in how many billion individuals they help. Yeah, that is quite something, isn't it? 1 billion animals a year affected by these reforms. There's no... it's very difficult to sort of measure this up against other types of activism that you could be involved with. But the scale of this is just immense. There won't necessarily be a satisfying moment when you suddenly appreciate, you kind of absorb all of the enormity of the suffering not inflicted by victories like these. But this is already fantastic progress. There is a hell of a lot that can be done, and we all get to be a part of it. Operating on a shoestring. The scale of these reforms is all the more remarkable compared with the scale of the movement that achieved them. The entire global movement to fight factory farming, every intervention in every country to help farmed animals and alternative proteins, employs a few thousand full-time advocates and spends less than 300 million a year combined. That's at least an order of magnitude smaller than most comparable movements. Wow, yeah, look at this. This is just how few resources the movement has compared to... There's animal shelters, we remember from the graph, right? Wildlife conservation, civil rights and social justice, performing arts. That's money well spent, isn't it? Ballet. While factory farms are going on. I mean, this is mental. We'll look back at this with some embarrassment. The scale of these reforms... Oh, sorry, we read this, right? This philanthropic neglect has two silver linings. First, it means that the contribution of each individual matters even more than on most issues. An advocate focused doggedly on an animal welfare reform, or a donor contributing a few $100,000, can hope to impact over 1 million animals' lives. Second, it makes me optimistic about what we can achieve as our movement grows. If this is what the pilot version of our movement is capable of, think what the scaled-up version will achieve. And every year our movement is growing. Yeah, that's true. These victories, given this small amount of resources available to us, is pretty impressive. Amping that up through things like FarmKind, I mean, if they can get this budget, you could double the farm animal movement's budget and still not be even half of any of these others. And we need to work out how to get people who care about animal shelters to care about animal farms. Look at all that lovely money. If all of that was in the factory farming column, we would have already won. The scale of these achievements with such little resources is quite remarkable. The opportunity to reduce suffering. I wish the end of factory farming were inevitable. I wish there were an easy path to end all the cruelty it causes. But changing the world is seldom easy. If it were, someone else would have already done it. Factory farming is, after all, a trillion-dollar global industry entrenched deeply in our diets, economy, and politics. The surprise is not that a few thousand advocates have failed to end this system, but that we've achieved so much progress in ending its worst abuses. This progress is all the more remarkable because it was never inevitable. Advocates and funders aren't just accelerating progress, they're changing the course of history. For most of human history, influencing the lives of millions was a luxury reserved for emperors, generals, and prophets, many of whom used that power for ill. Today, it's an opportunity available to most of us. We should seize it. Yeah, very true. This is a really, really cool piece. I enjoyed this a lot. Not inevitable, not impossible. It's a real window that we have where we can contribute to this. And it's a hell of a lot of difference that we can make. Let's do some fast action network, shall we? I'm on a new computer, so I'm going to have to log in. Nice. Oh, hell yeah, they've got loads of new stuff. Ah, look, this is not this is not my main. I'll have to log out, get on my proper account. Doxing all my emails over here. It must be my Google account now. Yes. That's more like it. Look at this Chad Fast Action Network score. Anyone got a bigger score than this? Action.thehumaneleague.org. Oh, they don't have anything. They don't have anything new for me. It's still the phone calls only. They do seem to update these. I guess they're in the US. They're a few hours behind. They sometimes update them while I'm streaming, so we'll have another look later, perhaps. Let's take a look at this debate that we were going to watch the other day. It's Paul Bashir and Tobias Lennart talking about the best ways to interact with the public on the issue of veganism. It's quite a long one. I think, if we finish this all up, probably up past midnight, but that's maybe okay. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go.
So today I'm hosting a discussion between two very outspoken vegans who have almost the complete opposite views on how we should help animals.
Changing the message to, well, just reduce then. Will you at least cut out meat 3 times a week? That not only seems ineffective, but it seems counterproductive.
I see taking steps towards going vegan also as successes, because
I don't know why you would even say that to me.
convincing people, vegans one by one, until we have enough of them, I don't see that happening.
Who cares what non-vegans say? This kind of shit actually bothers me, that
And saying that, like, yeah, the ones who are not ready, I think that's kind of lame.
there's nothing that convinces me that telling people to eat less meat is going to get them to understand the injustice better.
I'm here with Paul Bashir, the co-founder of the activism group Anonymous for the Voiceless, and Tobias Lennart, author of the book How to Create a Vegan World. Now, to start off with you guys, I'd like you to sort of like warm up a bit and get into the mood, I suppose, to have a big discussion, an important discussion. Could you want each of you to give me like a quick, like 1 to 2 sentence intro for yourself? So, Tobias, do you want to start with yours?
Yeah, I've been into animal activism, vegan activism for 25 years. Wrote the book you mentioned, co-founder of ProVeg and other initiatives. And I blog at tobiaslennart.substack.com.
Okay, Paul?
I've been vegan activist for 13 years now. Started AV roughly 10 years ago now. Been heavily involved in street activism.
I want to establish something that's really important, that I know you both personally. I call you both friends, and I know that you're both in this for the right reasons, that you both are
Yeah, these guys are both titans, hey? I mean, this is a really interesting conversation because they come from very different angles, but they're both very successful in their fields and with their approaches. So I think clearly there are some parts where there's disagreements. Ultimately, they're pushing towards the same goal. I wonder if we'll see some of that great synthesis that we've been seeing between, the suit-wearing lobbyist types and the blood-drenched sign-carrying types, as that article put it. We'll see if we can notice any synthesis going on.
And you only want to make the world a better place for animals. You want to change the world for animals. But let's give the audience a bit of an idea of what they're in for with your disagreements before we kick into it and give you guys the microphone. So you guys have quite opposing views. So Paul, your general view, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, is that veganism is the non-negotiable baseline. So anything less than veganism is animal abuse. And you believe that meat eaters must be held directly accountable, even if that means confrontation. I think that's a pretty fair representation. Would you agree?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I actually put the bar at vegan activism.
Okay.
And this is something that has been part of AV's mission statement since we started, but we've only clarified this and provided more structure around how we deliver this in the last sort of 5 years, especially in the last 2 years. Especially in this last campaign, we made a very clear update in how we deliver this.
Okay, so vegan activism is actually a moral baseline. Then that gives an even better understanding of where you're at. And Tobias, you believe that veganism is just a means to an end, but not the end in itself. You support reduction as a step forward, and probably your most controversial point is that in some very specific cases, you believe that eating something or whatever it is, using something non-vegan could help animals more in the long run, which has been probably your most contentious point that you've made publicly. And we'll get into that in detail, I'm sure, about that today as well. Again, is that a fair representation of?
Yeah, although I'd say that last bit is not part of my theory of change. It's just an illustration, or I use it to illustrate different views of looking at this.
Fair enough. I was only using it to give people an idea of that kind of core disagreement that you're likely going to have today. So this isn't just like a pointless.
I wonder what situation that is. I know that he said before that he would eat a steak for €1,000 because you can give that to a charity and that'll help more animals. Which I think is empirically correct. A lot of people would find that not to be acceptable, but there you go.
This debate about tactics, I truly believe that the way we approach all of this could mean the difference between millions of animals continuing to suffer and be exploited, or being spared and changing the world. So it's really important that we have these discussions. And with that, so Paul, you actually told me that after watching my last interview with Tobias that you saw some big holes in his position. So let's start with you and let's ask the question, what stands out to you as the most flawed or dangerous points from your side in Tobias's position, and or wherever you want to start, basically, with those kind of poking those holes. And Tobias, don't worry, you'll get your chance later on to turn the tables and ask Paul some questions a little later as well. So Paul, when you're ready.
So my question is to better understand your position, Tobias, because this is the first time I'm talking to you, so I don't think going off one YouTube video is enough to understand your position properly. And I only saw the one thing that you did with David. I haven't seen all of the videos you've done with David or anything else really from.
It's also quite remarkable. These guys have both been in the movement for over a decade and have apparently not met before. That's kind of surprising to me. It's not as small a world as we sometimes think, I guess.
From your work, I'm pretty deeply entrenched in my own work, so I don't really. There's a lot of people I don't really know too much about. I know a bit about your book, but I haven't read it, and so I'd like to just ask you what your position is exactly on this, because from watching the video that I watched with you and David, what I understood was that you were basically saying that it's more effective to speak in a way to non-vegans that would encourage them to do things like Meatless Mondays.
Yeah.
Am I off base, or is that
No. So
is that your position?
yeah, I would say my top principle is that trumps all the other ones is that we need a multitude of approaches, and we need to be flexible in our approaches and see what works for which people or in which situation. So that's one important thing. But to address what you are saying about the meat reduction ask, so you have to understand the theory of change that I set out in my book, which is about a multitude of big masses of reducers being responsible for driving demand and thus supply of vegan products. So if you have the chance today to drink a lot of plant-based milks, that is not because of the vegans, that is because of the demand from reducers who, for whatever reason, to whatever degree, consume vegan milk. And I think that this supply, this option that we have to have easy access to alternatives, makes it easier for people to shift more and more to the vegan end of the spectrum. And so I think for system change, encouraging many people to reduce is going to get us there faster. And what I ultimately want to do is create a fertile breeding ground for your activism. So what I want to do is have a situation in which people can still much easier than today go vegan, and they don't need all the moral motivation as a start. And so they have already the experience that there are good products and they're qualitative and they're tasty and it's convenient, etc. And then they feel that there's less sacrifice to be made, and then the heart and the mind opens to listen to those animal rights messages that you are quite eloquently often telling them. So I think that to a large extent, it's where you stand depends on where you sit. So whether people can hear the message that you bring to them depends, or whether they're going to be vegan, what they believe depends on their position, which is a very ingrained position of eating meat. And to a certain extent, you could say that, like, as long as people eat meat every day, there's very little openness to hear those messages because they think there's so much to lose. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit.
Yeah, so this is a bit like a sequencing thing, basically. The idea is that if you get a lot of reducers, you create a market for the alternatives get better, and then it's easier to get people all the way there. I've got a good slide about this.
Yeah, I think it does, but I just want to clarify one thing here, which is my specific question about your position is, do you think it's more effective to promote a reducitarian message than it is to promote a direct, truthful message?
It depends. At a large scale, like say you give me $10 million or $1 billion to have like a large advertising campaign, I think I would share a reducitarian message rather than a vegan message at this point in time. I would maybe not do that in 10 years or in 20 years or I don't know what, but at this point in time, I think I would do that because we know from studies that the uptake of such an ask is bigger than when you ask people to go vegan.
I honestly think the real answer to this is an activism ask, or a vegan 2.0 ask, or like a farm kind ask. I suppose they're talking in terms of the impact on lowering meat consumption directly. But yeah, I would seriously think about vegan 2.0 billboard at this point. I really think that's the thing to get. If we get enough people doing it, we're going to win. And we don't need to get 100% of people doing it.
And if we have many people following up on that ask, we can actually drive demand and supply and create system change. System change in which then later a vegan ask will become more effective. I'm not saying that we should not have vegan asks now, and I often ask people to go vegan, but not consistently, and I adapt it to the person and the situation that I have in front of me. And I don't consider this a betrayal. I consider this what I think is the most effective thing I can do to end animal suffering and exploitation as fast as possible.
So, my response to that is, are you open to being wrong about the fact that what you're doing creates fertile grounds for my work? Are you open to the fact that it actually makes my work harder?
I'm open to I'm open to being wrong, definitely. Yeah, please tell me where you think it makes your work harder.
Okay, so I've spoken to about 30,000 people myself directly on the streets, but my job is
Yeah, that's wild. That's bigger sample size than I've ever had. That's bloody impressive, isn't it?
to lead and provide a platform for others to speak to. I mean, AV's done over 25,000 cubes around the world in over 1,000 cities. So I'm constantly feeding off people and their feedback in the organization. The work that they're doing on the ground is something I'm vicariously living through because I'm always getting feedback about how the conversations are going and providing leadership and guidance on what they should do to navigate conversations. The outreach element of the cubes is actually, I think, even more important than the art installation itself, the cube itself. But both go hand in hand. And what we find on outreach a lot of the times is we get people that are either vegetarian or one of the Aryans, right? The flexitarians, the reducitarians. And they're actually harder to talk to than regular non-vegans who have never actually come across the message before. The reason why is because they feel entitled, and there's only so many times that you can.
I will say here, Paul is thinking about the variable of how easy it is to get someone to go vegan. And I imagine that Tobias is going to say that's one part of it, right? But if the person's already a vegetarian, they already have reduced their contribution to such an extent. Even if that person is less likely to go vegan, which I don't imagine is the case. I really don't want to push back too hard on what Paul is saying here, because I do find it to be very compelling that he's spoken to 30,000 people, frankly, and presumably has done a good amount of experimentation, or at least noticing of trends in that time. But yeah, I think even if it was the case that once someone's a vegetarian, it's harder to get them to go vegan, still it's going to be a positive thing overall for the ultimate variable of animal suffering or animal rights violations, if you want to think about it that way.
Actually bring someone to the table and ask them to do the right thing. I know that I came into this debate knowing that you're going to refer to data and studies a lot, and I know that you do this quite a lot. I mean, based on what I saw in the video with you and David. But when you're out there in the real world actually doing the activism, this is what we're getting. We're getting more people than not. I would say 80% of the people that have come across some kind of plant-based reduced message, you know, their friends are plant-based, they've told them to eat less meat, or, you know, they heard from somebody that did it for weight loss, so they're trying it out, and Meatless Mondays was happening at their workplace, so they joined in, or whatever it was. These people feel entitled because they feel like they're already doing enough. They're not as receptive and they're not as open as people who have never come across this message before. That's generally our experience.
Yeah. So I think there's truth in what you're saying, in that there can be an effect of complacency. So like when we advocate for reduction or whatever, then some people can definitely get the impression that's like reduction is okay and they can be part-time animal eaters or whatever. I think the difference between you and me is that I see a large percentage of, or a large share of reducers as a win. I think you have like this all or nothing stance where only a vegan is good or a vegan activist is good. I see a mass of reducers as contributing to the solution. So I'm not despairing when I see, I mean, people have to really do it. I mean, there's definitely people who say like, I'm already reducing and they're not doing anything. But there's definitely.
Yeah, that is the big main thing that would be my objection to flexitarianism, is that I feel like, because it's so vague, a lot of people can, I mean, you can just say it doesn't really mean anything. And if I see you eating a sausage roll later, you'll say, well, this was one of the times that I did eat meat. So I'm very suspicious generally of people. It's, again, right, good if they do it. But yeah, there's so much leeway in the reducitarian label. It's so much range in what it could actually mean.
Quite an amount. I just heard 50% in UK, for instance, quite an amount of people who are reducing. And if you all do that together, then I think that is systemic change and is leading to more change. And I don't think that we need to convince people one by one to go vegan. I think that if we have, and I don't know what these numbers are, but if we have a certain percentage of people that are a certain percentage vegan, then the system will topple and things will take care of themselves. So I'm not looking just at the number of vegans and how difficult or how easy it is to make people vegan. I think that's one part of the puzzle, but there's other parts of the puzzle which I think are basically more important still.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've made this claim that if you had $1 billion to put into one approach right now, you would put it into reducitarian messages. But that's literally all the vegan movement has been about since it began, pretty much. I don't see how now is any different to 30 years ago. I mean, I think since 2010, roughly.
Yeah, true.
We've had like most.
I'm saying true to chat, by the way. I don't necessarily agree with what Paul's saying here.
Reducitarian messages, and even since 2010, you know, there's been mostly of, I would say most of the vegan movement is reducitarian messages and welfare messages. So I don't know why you feel like there's even more of a need for that. I also don't.
I don't know about that. It seems to me that there's plenty of vegan messaging out there. We're all just speaking from our own perspectives, right? I guess that if you are coming from the perspective that the vegan message is the proper one, then the non-vegan messages that you see you're really going to notice and are going to tend to irk you and everything. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. It's interesting. It's so fascinating, this conversation, though, because it's such different perspectives. They've just spent so long in the movement, both, but with completely different approaches. Yeah, really, really cool.
Have this mentality that it's all or nothing. It's just justice or what are we doing? You know, that's my position. Like, there's no. I know you're going to refer to data and stuff like that, but there's nothing that convinces me that telling people to eat less meat is going to get them to understand the injustice better. I don't see how that lines up. I see that there's.
It's going to say again, like, understanding the injustice is not necessarily the goal. This is a little bit like the cultivated meat piece I wrote in the Vegan Society magazine. If you can shortcut to the goal of reducing the suffering, it doesn't really matter if people understood the injustice. If you could magic away all of the suffering and injustice, we only want people to understand it so that they can affect it. But if you can just undermine it through other means. So, I mean, I really do think that these approaches work together, and you have the push factors and pull factors going in the same direction. Try and find that slide that I was talking about. Yeah, true, Asparagus. There's a really good. Damn, I've got so many slides I want to show you guys.
There's either people who are open to the fact that they're living in hypocrisy, that they're saying they respect animals while disrespecting them in the worst possible ways, or they're not. And I think that if they eat less meat, I don't like, yeah, that there may be a case for some people where that opens them up more, but I also see the case where people who reduce, like, I see this more often than not, especially with my outreach experience, that they're just simply open. And if they're open, then they should be given the direct message from the beginning. And I also think that with your approach, people never actually get the correct, clear vegan message. Whereas with my approach, they get the clear vegan message plus your message in essence, because if they decide to not do what I'm asking them to do, they'll end up reducing at best. Like, they end up potentially reducing as a result. But with your message, they never actually get this I need to be vegan moral obligation message. They never really get that unless they, by chance, stumble across a vegan activist who actually gives them that message. But I don't think that that is.
Yeah, here's the slide that I'm talking about. We've got, this is a percentage of people who think that most animals are treated humanely. This in the US. Here's the percentage of people who think that the animals they eat are treated humanely. So 58% think most animals are treated humanely, and then you talk about the animals that you eat, and it jumps to 75% saying, I'm sure that they're treated humanely. And here's the number of animals, again in the US, who are not on factory farms. So this is a pretty good graph for that cognitive dissonance. It's stronger in the case of the animals that you eat directly, right? You're even more sure that they're in high welfare conditions. And of course, 99% of them are on factory farms. A bunch of other slides on this deck that I would go through as well. There's another cognitive dissonance graph. 70% have some discomfort with the way that animals are used in the food industry. 49% support a ban on factory farming. 47% support a ban on slaughterhouses. 33% support a complete ban on animal farming. 33%, 1 in 3. 5% are vegetarian. Here's another graph I made on cognitive dissonance. Well-known, well-established correlation, this one, between proximity to a vegan and concern for plant welfare.
Is a very good chance. I don't see how like that is going to increase the chances of that happening. I think that we run the risk of them never actually stumbling across another person who talks about veganism ever again. These conversations we have with people on the streets, we keep in mind that this may be the only time they ever encounter a vegan activist. They may never actually have this confrontation again. They may just slip back into, the chances are more likely than not that they'll slip back into complacency and comforted. They'll be comforted by every other non-vegan around them, and they'll never feel the moral obligation to change. So that's even more of a reason for us to make sure we give them a clear message. And at the end of the day, there's so many things I want to cover here, but at the end of the day, I don't see how it's a convincing argument to suggest that it makes it easier for my work when most of the people we talk to who say they're doing something, I mean, vegetarian is the classic reducitarian stance. It's not a justice position. It has nothing to do with ethics, even though some people think they're doing it for animals. But the creation of the vegetarian of that position, if you want to call it that, is literally done in a misguided fashion. It wasn't done to end an injustice. Vegetarian is a diet, and it reduces one form of animal exploitation from your diet. So it's the classic reducitarian stance, and vegetarians have existed long before vegans, and vegetarians have been allied with vegans even in the vegan movement. A lot of vegans have allied themselves with vegetarians. So in a lot of ways, the
Yeah, true. Asparagus. I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I think some of those people must know really, right, or on some level. But a lot, how much of the ignorance is like genuine ignorance or willful ignorance, I think, is up for debate. No debate about the ignorance existing, though. I mean, people, yeah, chronically ill-informed or claim to be on, the realities of factory farming.
A vegetarian position has been made credible. It's been validated by many vegans. It's definitely the more dominant class, let's say, within the world. Like, we have more vegetarians than we do vegans, apparently, from the stats I've seen and from the amount of people I talk to on the streets. This seems to be true. So how is it making it easier for us? All these vegetarians should be going vegans in droves. But I don't see that happening. I see them being very pompous when we talk to them. They turn their nose up and they feel like, who are you to tell me any different? I have been vegetarian longer than you've been vegan, so why should I change? This is usually the attitude we get.
Tobias, just before you respond, I just want to clarify something. Paul, you referred a couple of times to justice and that this being veganism being about justice. Just so we're not talking past anybody who might be coming across this video as, maybe not even vegan, could you briefly explain why it's a justice issue?
Yeah, sure. So I don't see veganism as a reduction of suffering movement. I actually think that misses the point completely. And veganism is essentially an abolitionist stance. It's inherently an abolitionist stance. So veganism is the abolition of human supremacy. And that's why I'm saying it makes it even harder to reverse that psychosis that people have. A lot of people are walking around thinking we're so important, we're so special, that we're not even animals. A lot of people think we're not even animals. That's how important and special we think we are. Then they also think that other animals are not even victims. Like, they're victimized to such a degree that they're not even considered victims. This is a problem with the way people view animals. And human supremacism is that program. That's the operating system, essentially. And so in order to dismantle human supremacy, I don't think that promoting a reduction of suffering is going to address that. I think that the definition of veganism touches on the fact that this is a justice movement very clearly. It's the ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting other animals. And that the word should, touches on the fact that this is something that you have to reject, that this is an injustice. When there's a should involved, that means that there's a good and a bad involved. And the should implies you should be good. You should do the good thing. So in essence, this is a justice movement. And yeah, that's why I think a lot of people were upset with the position that you seem to hold, which is that it's okay to promote less exploitation, less supremacism.
Yeah, well, thanks, Paul, for the input. There's so much to react to. I don't really know where to start, but so maybe for one thing,
for me, the thing is, less is the only option we have in the immediate sense. It doesn't mean that you can't tell people to go vegan, but as I often say, we don't have the big green button. So we are talking about degrees of reduction in the immediate term. If it was the case that you could get 100 times as many people to agree to cut their animal product consumption in half, as you could get to people to agree to cut it out altogether, clearly that would be the better option, because you'd be saving 50 times more animals. So I think it's easy to get fixated on the idea of, the only acceptable level is 0. And I don't even disagree with that idea ultimately, but it's not an option that we have right now. Now, I don't know if you can, in fact, get 100 times as many people to cut in half, right? That may not be the case, but if it were the case, that's what I would support doing and being, you know, pragmatically moving in that direction. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that graph. I wonder to what extent non-vegans actually care about plants when discussing veganism. We know outside of the vegan context they rank plants below animals. When vegans mention maybe that changes. Yeah. The study that I always go to on that is the one with where they ask people about cows' moral status and they're given nuts or beef jerky before. And when they've just eaten beef, people are less likely to, or more likely to assign a lower moral status to the cow. Yeah, maybe Oppenheimer. Yeah, the less animals somebody eats, the less likely they'll be to try and justify it. Maybe, yeah, probably if, I mean, we talk about meat attachment as one component of this. Like some people are very, very attached to meat and other people eat meat but are not particularly fussed one way or another, right? If you have low meat attachment, you don't, there's not that much to lose on the other side. You can, well, I was going to say you can reduce your meat attachment. I don't know if that's technically correct. I mean, it would just entail changing your views. But what I'm thinking of is the app, the Food Tea app, which I've mentioned before for people who are thinking about going in the direction of eating less meat. This little game where you can press the green button, press the foods that show up in green circles and not press the foods that show up in red circles. And it'll train your brain to want meat less. So that's a pretty cool intervention for people who are, you know, already persuaded and looking for tools to help them actually follow through.
Is that I agree that that's where we need to get this anti-speciesist, anti-human supremacy ethos or whatever you want to call it. That will be the end point, where people know that animals are not there for us to abuse and where we don't abuse them, etc., etc. I just don't think that necessarily the fastest way to get there is to be necessarily always emphasizing that and to go so directly at that. I think that our world, our system is just too entrenched in the use of animals for people to get that. I mean, it's very hard for people to see certain things as long as they're like really ingrained in it, as long as they're profiting from it.
See you soon, Gary. Take care. Thanks for being here.
As long as they're like having some really big advantages of it, then there is motivated reasoning. Then people will try to find a way to not believe what you are saying. And so my strategy is to take away that dependence or perceived dependence on animal abuse, right? So I think that the moral revolution will come a lot easier after we've set certain things in place. And that is, among other things, a lot of alternatives, changes of norms, changes of maybe some laws. So telling people like this is an injustice and you can't participate in it, I'm sure it will work for some people. I'm sure it doesn't work for most people or for many other people.
What makes you so sure of that, though? Because you aren't out on the streets doing the cubes like we are doing them, right? I know that you've attended some cubes, but, well, I'm not sure how many, actually. How many cubes have you actually attended?
Oh, just a couple, but I've done street activism before you existed.
Yes, it's such a...
different ways.
Before you existed. I messaged David Ellis about that. I said, oh, that came out like a bit more of a hostile bar than I meant it. I think he meant before AV existed. It's not like I've done more protests than you've had hot dinners, Sonny. Yeah, the Food Tea app. Here we go. This is... Yeah, Food Trainer, or it's called Food Tea on the App Store. Here it is. So you can actually do sort of custom settings on here, depending on what you want to eat. Customize unhealthy foods, customize healthy foods. But meat are included in the things you might want to avoid. You can see here you've got alcohol, biscuits, cake, bread, right, depending on what's your vice. And then you play the game, and it comes up. I've got a slide of it on here. This isn't actually what it looks like, but actually, to be honest, it's not a million miles off what it looks like. You come up with the red things, the bad things in a red circle like that, and then the good things in a green circle like that. And literally, you do 3 rounds. You click on the green ones, you don't click on the red ones, and it's called response inhibition training. The idea is that it trains you to kind of take a step back when you have that temptation and not respond to the thing, right? You've had training now of going here and not responding to meat, and it carries over. Yeah. Yeah, nice idea.
So I've talked to many people on streets before I got into more institutional activism. So yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so based on your activism on the streets, you're not seeing those results, but are you open to being wrong about that?
I am open, but
because
just let me,
we are.
Yeah. So it's not just based on my own activism, it's also based on what I'm reading from what people are doing with certain messaging. It's based on what I'm hearing also a lot of people saying actually from anonymous groups. Like I read now and then about people who are in a group or left a group or started another group or whatever. And I hear people saying it works. I hear people saying, "Oh, it doesn't work. We're doing something else. We're doing our own thing, etc." But I mean, I don't want to I think it's really maybe because I don't want to just the worst thing for the animals here from this debate is that we each just stay entrenched in our own views, and I'm open to being wrong.
No, but it's okay to debate ideas.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Hey Jake, how you going? Good to see you.
That's what we're doing.
Sure. But let me just say that I really think that I'm not against what you're doing at all. I think it's a necessary thing. I think that that the idea of trying to pre-select people, the ones you can talk to, the ones you can't talk to, by who arrives at you, who comes to you, is a smart thing, and that can work. I think that there's a lot of good things. I think you create community. I like the emphasis on activism. So there's a lot of good things that I see. I just think that it's not the only thing. It's not a theory of change that can explain how we get from here to the end. I don't know how you want to do that by convincing people, vegans, one by one, and till we have enough of them. I don't see that happening. So we need, apart from what you're doing, which is great work, we need other things that create system change in which people can change easier. I see so many people making these claims about with other social justice issues, we wouldn't tolerate this incrementalist reductionist stance. But it takes just 1 minute. I mean, ask ChatGPT or whatever about incremental tactics and approaches that the other social justice movements took. I mean, in every case, there's been anti-slavery, feminism, whatever. People have been fighting these fights with incremental changes and incremental asks. And I'm sure there were also people.
That's interesting. You don't really hear that perspective that much, eh? I definitely do hear people saying, "Oh, we wouldn't accept incrementalism in other cases." I've never really thought to look, frankly, if to what extent incrementalism is accepted in other movements. I mean, I think I said something the other day about, if I were a slave, I would hope that there's some people trying to end institutional slavery, and in the meantime, I'll take whatever better conditions I can get, right? Yeah, I wonder what incrementalism he's referring to. They're just going to say some examples, I guess.
People who had an absolutist ask, but I mean, it's very clearly shows at least that we are and we have used incremental approaches in these other social justice movements. We can ask people, or we could back in the day, people did ask, like, let's treat slaves better, let's do less of it, child labor is wrong, but let's cut the hours, let's change the circumstances. In all cases, we have done that. So I don't understand why in this case we shouldn't be strategic, or we shouldn't be looking at what works and be pragmatic. That would be my stance.
It does seem to me that incrementalism is all we have in any direction, because Paul's approach is also going to be incremental, right? You're getting people to go vegan one at a time. It's not ending the entire injustice. Like I say, we don't have the big green button. So it really seems to be that all we have is incrementalism.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it's bad faith to use the term strategic to suggest that we're not being strategic currently. Because if you see the work we're doing, especially these last campaigns we just did, the word that comes to mind is strategic. So I think that the strategy that we are implementing is the most effective that we have right now. I think that the case that you're making, that we should look at other justice movements and how they've succeeded, I think that you've also made the case to couple that. You've also made the case that, this injustice is more intertwined and entrenched in culture and in society than any other. And so we have to maybe take a different approach with regards to this as a result. I think that makes the case for why we need a direct, truthful, and absolutist position. It makes the case that we need that even more, I think, because, like I said, we may only have 5 minutes with people. It may be the only time they actually encounter a vegan message, and we're going to squander that opportunity by talking about Meatless Mondays. That seems absurd to me. I think that we should use the opportunity wisely and get the correct message across. And if those people who are open to doing Meatless Mondays want to do Meatless Mondays as a result of our position that they should be vegan and they should actually speak up for the animals and anything else is morally unjustifiable, then guess what? They will actually do that because, you ask for veganism and vegan activism. And if they're not open to that and they are open to reducing, that's what they'll do on their own accord. Everybody has to hold themselves accountable at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. There's might be something there about setting out like a more ambitious negotiating position. And interesting to hear him say that. I mean, presumably he wouldn't kind of be that pleased about such an outcome. Although I can't help but thinking you've got to be a little bit pleased. If someone really is going to cut their meat consumption in half, let's say, I think it would just be the pragmatic thing of like, they've kind of said that they're going to reduce, but who knows?
But yeah, and I also just think like this, looking at other justice movements is not necessarily effective because humans have gotten a lot of things wrong. And so what they did for the civil rights movement and what they did for other movements may have been the case for that movement, but that doesn't mean it was the best thing in order to address that issue. It could have been addressed better, So
I agree with that.
I think that we're figuring things out with regards to the vegan movement. And I think that the formula was actually largely figured out by Gary Yourofsky in terms of how we should talk to people. And then you have to, on top of all of his work and all of the success he's had with his work, I think he's the most influential vegan activist we have on the planet as a solo activist. I think his words have convinced more people to be vegan than any others. And then you have to put on top of that everything.
Interesting question, Asparagra. If we convey that the only acceptable goal is veganism, but that any partial step towards that goal are also beneficial, do you think that compromises the integrity and effectiveness of both messages? I mean, I can see Paul's perspective where you don't want to Here's what you don't want to do: go into a negotiation and say, "Our price is 20,000, but we will actually take 10,000." You don't want to give that away at the start, right? Even if it's the case, you don't want to give the, if you give an easier option, that would be the easier option, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it just has to be congratulating people to the extent that they have in fact reduced. It's a sliding scale at the end of the day, right? It is going to be, you know, very few people having actually no animal products at all, right? We talk about trace milk and medicine and stuff like that. And then people reducing kind of on that spectrum towards it. There is something about like a more ambitious position being set out. I wonder how many. I would love to know some data on like the percentage of people that they interact with who go different ways with it, or say that they're going to make a change, or say that they're going to go vegan, or whatever it may be. I bet that some people are far better than others at getting those conversations to go well, so it'd be quite cool to study them and see what are they doing right.
Thing that AB has done with all the work that we have done around the world, and all of my work personally, I've done over 1,000 cubes, and these campaigns that we're doing really push the envelope with regards to how we work as an organization, and on the individual level, how sharp we are and how effective we are. We actually do, I know that you're a man of data, so we actually do have data to show for the work, and you may, at the end of all this, if I
Nice.
quote you all of these stats, you may say it's anecdotal. You may say Gary Yourofsky's work is anecdotal, but I think that these anecdotes are extremely important to look at, because you've said some things already on this recording so far that sound like you're saying that it's not as effective to focus on what we're doing. You're saying that by giving people a clear, direct message, we'll not get as many people as a softer, reduce, meatless Mondays kind of message. I don't understand how you can come off as confident saying that, because for 2 or 3 years, and David, you'll know this because you were a part of AV when this was the case, we had an open source outreach program. Essentially, people could just show up to Cubes and kind of just say whatever they wanted and get away with it. And so if you think that people were showing up to Cubes and delivering a clear, hardcore, direct, truthful message, that's not the case, because let's face it, what I've learned in the last 2 years, especially the last 2 years of running AV, is that people really need guidance and leadership and structure. They need protocols to follow in order to be able to do that. Not everybody is cut from the same cloth. Not everybody is able.
It is cool that they seem to have systematized things a lot more. We were looking at their Google Drive the other day where they've got the conversation flow chart. Once you start to systematize things like that, not only do you have these reproducible resources that you can say to every new person who wants to sign up, right, here's the link, go and see the Google Drive and you can find our stuff there. But you also then have a basis for improving your systems, and you can go and edit the thing underlying the PDF document, right? If you find a better way of doing it, and you know that you've got a way to update your systems as you find ways to improve them. Whereas the alternative is sort of letting those improvements get away and thinking, oh, that was a really good idea, that worked really well, but you haven't written it down, right? It's like, yeah, you want to be able to build it into the system so it's reproducible next time.
Not everybody is capable, I meant to say, of actually being this kind of activist. To be effective at being truthful, and you referred to me speaking eloquently earlier, and that's something that not everybody's able to do, actually, with their words, to command attention, to control the conversation, to hold people accountable in the face of, social comfort, which we're social creatures, so we are attracted to social comfort. And so in the face of that, to be able to actually tell someone, no, you're actually a hypocrite, you know, and I'm not going to let you off the hook until you actually do the right thing. That's not something that people like just show up to cubes and do. They need like training on this. And so I would argue that people who have complained to you about the ineffectiveness of the approach at AV cubes are either incapable of actually doing the approach or just haven't done it for whatever reason. And so what they were doing was just showing up at cubes and just saying whatever and doing some kind of lackluster version of the outreach protocol that we actually have. And in fairness, in 2023, so it's only been 2 years now, was when we actually implemented the workshop. David, you attended the workshop that I did at One Damn Week, which was in 2023. That was the first time we actually presented a flow chart on how you should actually guide a conversation from beginning to end. Before that, nobody had actual steps to follow. And what I learned was that was incredibly valuable to activists, and it actually shaped. And it's been obvious that this has changed the way things are done in AV, because it's shaped the outreach conversations on the individual level as teams. People are now running their own workshops. People are now understanding exactly how to do this.
That is really based, to be fair. I mean, this is changes he's talking about having been made in the last 2 years. So we've not seen a lot of the effects of that, right? These things are going to take some time to manifest if you are coming up with a more effective way and teaching that way to get people to go vegan. So they're starting this in 2023 when they did the workshop and the flowchart and everything else. It's good to be more organized, right? It's good to be proficient. And here's the cool thing as well. If let's say that Tobias in this conversation convinced Paul and showed some data or whatever that you could save way more animals by saying this instead of that, you can go and edit those systems and say, okay, well we've got our system for educating activists, and we've got our system for the flowcharts that we hand out, whatever. So now we can go and edit those and implement. I mean, I'm not sure if that'll happen.
So I would say that if you haven't attended a cube lately, and especially not one of these campaigns that I'm lead organizing with all of the best organizers and the best activists from all over the world in the AV network, all unifying in one city, then you don't.
Yeah, I hear what you guys are saying about reducitarianism, and I grant that it does feel icky that there's apparent like endorsement of some level of the behavior. Again, I would think like, well, it's going to be more bad if they do more of it. Sometimes that's kind of an intuitive, or like a bit of a useful intuition pump, I guess you could say, to the reverse of it would be better if the person did less of this thing. Or I guess the same as that is it'd be worse if the person did more of this thing. We probably do want to agree with the latter. We're a bit hesitant to agree with the former because it sounds like we're saying it would be a good or an acceptable end state if the person just did less of this thing. But it's not, it's just saying it would be better or worse, right? So, yeah, I think that can apply to all those cases.
Don't really know what we're doing as an organization, because these campaigns that we're doing, like One Damn Month, and this year we did One Dom Month, and then One Damn Ode, so it was essentially more than 5 weeks of consecutive street work on a daily basis. It's like an outreach boot camp. We're swimming through human psychology on a daily basis. We're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. We're understanding what makes people tick, what actually gets people to commit, what feels genuine, what doesn't. You know, we are literally figuring this out as we go, and we just had the experience of working with Gary on the ground as well. So we were able to pull from his wisdom and to figure out if what we're figuring out makes sense, you know, if this is the right direction that we're going in or not.
Yeah, again, there's a lot. So just to some extent, I feel we're a bit talking next to each other in the sense that, like, I mean, I'm not, whenever I see an AV in somewhere, I'm happy that they're there. I applaud them. I'm really thinking this is part of the solution. At the same time, like I said before, I'm repeating myself, it's not enough. We need something more than that. We need systemic change, and I don't think that systemic change is going to come from this one-by-one conversion, no matter.
Hang on a minute.
Enough. We need something more than that. We need systemic change, and I don't think that systemic change is going to come from that. We need systemic change, and I don't think that systemic change is going to.
He's got a Brian Research pen right there. Hell yeah. Check out his pen.
Come from this one-by-one conversion, no matter how many people.
That's based as hell. I gave this to him at a conference like a couple of months ago.
Or cubes you have. But that idea of like,
Well,
okay, we're gonna.
Can I just clarify what you mean by systemic change? Do you mean law?
Check it out. It's totally the same pen. It's based, eh?
Laws being changed, because AV's not against that.
I mean, it will be lobbying. It will be legal change. It will be a change in the institutions. In the
yeah, it's kind of interesting at this point. They're both getting to a point of going, I don't actually disagree with what you're saying. Like, I mean, I think it's what I said throughout. Like, definitely, and this is totally sincere from these kind of pragmatic types who appear to be, you know, the reduced-tarian advocates and stuff like that. Like, they are not against the vegan advocacy. Yeah, I don't think that. Certainly, Tobias, not saying that anything Paul's doing is wrong or bad or going in the wrong direction. Yeah, I think that, you know, for the incrementalists, it is a benefit to have the all or nothing people, even if only to be able to seem more reasonable in comparison, right? This is the radical flank effect, where if you have a group of radicals, it kind of gives, it expands the scope of what is possible, the Overton window almost. It's really cool that there are visible vegans who are doing what you would kind of hope people would be doing in such a situation, going out on the streets and saying, look at these bloody videos, you've got to change, where really nothing less is acceptable. I think it definitely benefits, you know, Tobias's worldview for there to be a group of people who's doing. I don't think that Tobias is probably trying to get Paul to actually change his mind or change anything that he's doing necessarily. Yeah, that's very true, Tone. That's very true. I guess there's a limit to what you can hope to achieve with the. If your ask is reducitarian, it's unlikely that someone is going to go beyond that, or maybe not, right? Maybe they later develop and reduce further and eventually go vegan. But yeah, I do agree with you. There's something in that negotiating position set out at the start, and of course you can't give the game away and say, by the way, I'd be happy if you just said you'll reduce, right? Even if you would be happy to some extent, you can't give that away.
In the offerings of the institutions, of all restaurants, of cafeterias, it would be norm changing. There's so many things that can and should be achieved, and that will not be achieved only by cubes. I mean, I think I'm fine with you saying that you think that your outreach is the best we have, but I would assume that you don't think it's the only thing we should do.
No, but this is not what we're discussing. We're discussing about how we should communicate. I mean, at least I thought we were discussing how we should communicate the vegan message to people. So I'm not talking about like programs at some school to change the cafeteria menu to whatever. This is not what I'm talking about, and I've never once opposed any of that.
Interesting. Yeah, fair. I mean, he's not wrong. That is the stated title of the debate, at least in the video title. How should vegans talk to the public? And quite cool at this junction. I mean, about halfway through the conversation, so they're both saying, "Well, I don't actually disagree with your approach."
Yeah. So
I'm
when
saying that when
I
it comes to doing outreach. Yeah, go ahead.
when I'm talking about reduction, I'm mainly talk about reduction in terms of institutional messaging, not so much one by one. I'm perfectly fine if you want to do one by one and have that very clear message. However, since you say that you will only get to a certain amount of people, I would say like, okay, there's
Yeah, the trouble is explaining the nuance to people clearly rather than accidentally sending a message that reducitarianism is a panacea or acceptable end game. Yeah, I think it's the same. You have the same issue with welfarism, right? Where people fear that it is an endorsement of the farming if the cages are big enough, that kind of thing, which you don't want to. I mean, it just doesn't need to be, right? Like we secure the cage-free commitment and we're going to go again and ask for the next thing. And once we've got all the cage-free commitments, we'll work out what the next kind of thing is. It's going to be an incremental process of getting it to be more expensive and less common. And yeah, there's no... It's on us to not stop once you get those wins. Once you get someone as reducitarian, or once you get a company to commit to whatever welfare policy it is, it's... yeah, we don't stop afterwards, right? We're going to still keep going and asking for more. And the only way of doing that is gradually. This is an interesting point in the actual debate itself, by the way, because there's clearly like a bit of a divergence in how they are coming at this, which is reflected in their experiences and so on. Tobias here is saying, when I'm talking about the reducitarian message, I'm mainly talking about institutional messaging. And Paul is, of course, talking about individual messaging. Now, the thing says, how should vegans talk to the public? So I guess that your interpretation, I mean, you know, interacting with institutions which are on behalf of the public, I don't know about that one. If they understand the reasoning, there's no reason they should misinterpret us as giving them a free pass to exploit animals minimalistically. Yeah, I think that's right. With like vegetarians, for example, I do like to encourage them and say, you know, well done and well good for having reduced thus far and stuff like that. Yeah, I think really the main thing I would be concerned about at this stage is, can I get them to be vegan 2.0? And that's how they're going to save most animals. I really think that would be my kind of that'd be my billboard at the moment.
There's other people that can be got to in other ways. And I would say, like, why not try that? You say that, like, yeah, if people are not open, they're not open. I don't think that's correct. I think they're not open to a certain message, but they might be open to other things. And if you only see openness to going vegan and going vegan as a success, then I can understand you. But I see taking steps towards going vegan also as successes, because, I mean...
Essentially like the guy obsessively refreshing the Fast Action Network, waiting for more, waiting to receive more orders.
We know that people generally proceed in phases and not overnight. So a reducer does, I mean, according to research, does have a bigger chance to become a vegetarian or a vegan and whatever. So if we can get people to reduce, that is a good step for more. And I mean, there's so many people also, for instance, that I meet in talks, etc., that have started for health reasons. And I believe you got into that as well for health reasons at some point, right? You studied medicine or whatever. So people are open and interested in different things. And I would say, like, if I imagine myself as the pig in the crate and I was looking at activists, I would want the activists I would, as the pig, I wouldn't care if the activist talks about justice. I would care about whatever gets me out of the crate. And that could be other messaging, and it could be slower, it could be less direct than what you're doing, but as long as it moves the needle. So I think that with AV outreach, I mean, you focus on the animals only, but you might miss, and I'm not saying you should do that, but let other people do that, right? Let other people then talk at least about the environment and the health, and don't say that that's like, I don't know what you would say of it, or about reduction.
What do you mean by let? So, sorry, Tobias. What do you mean by let other people do that? You mean in other organizations?
Yeah, organizations and.
Well, I'm not. Okay, but I'm not arrogant enough to believe that I actually have control over other organizations and what they do. I don't get to tell them what they do.
I mean,
they do whatever they want to do, and I've never worked against a single organization, or, So I don't know why you would even say that to me. I'm just focused on doing what we do at AV, and I think that the outreach protocol that we have is the most effective at getting the individual consumer to stop demanding animal exploitation and to stop being a human supremacist.
Yeah.
So just because I say that that's the most effective way of doing it doesn't mean I'm saying that I don't want other organizations to exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear. And I didn't say that you want other organizations to not exist, but I would say that, like, and maybe I'm confusing you with David's audience from the previous interviews that we did, but I see so many people criticizing these other so-called non-abolitionist approaches or incremental approaches, and criticizing them in an actually mean way often, etc. And I don't know why that is necessary. Why we can't see that these things do need to coexist. And I think the problem lies with you and others maybe seeing this thing as like, yeah, if we don't talk about the justice or the injustice, then we're not doing the animals a service, and that I don't believe.
Tobias,
so I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting divergence going on here. I mean, I think that I have also been similarly skeptical, or not necessarily even skeptical, but just almost suspicious that I hear it as like an ideological right that we ought to be talking about justice. Let's just say, for example, like talking about justice, whether or not you should talk about justice in these things, or talking about exploitation, whatever it is. I have heard Paul in the past as saying, it's the right thing to talk about the injustice and the exploitation, and therefore that's what you should talk about, because that's just honest, or like that's the way that I think about it essentially. And clearly you get to run your activism sessions and have people saying whatever is right the organizer's saying. But I do think from what I've heard him saying here and on the One Damn Week briefing that we watched the other day, it does seem to be that he's saying this more from a place of like, this is what we have found to have worked. And he mentioned that they do have data on this. I wonder if they have that in any kind of structured form. Even if they don't, though, I'm not inclined to discount that kind of evidence. This guy says he's spoken to 30,000 people on the street. That is, like I said, that's a bigger sample size than I've ever had. Now, if you don't have a proper record of them, you can, surely can't remember all of those interactions and probably overestimate how often some things occurred and underestimate how often other things occurred. But nevertheless, right, if you're doing anything cooked that much, right, 30,000 times over the course of 10 years, you are going to pick up a thing or two about how best to do it. So yeah, I mean, if it, I wonder. In my mind previously, I think I would have assumed that Paul would say, because it's so, you know, it's important that we talk about justice, and therefore even if we had a study saying that it would be less effective if we talked about justice, we're still going to do it anyway because it's the most important thing. I actually don't think that is what he's saying. He's saying that this is what they have found to be the most effective approach, and that it sounds like they have changed their approach or tweaked their approach, right, where they've found ways to do things better. So I feel I'm giving this kind of view more credit than I once would have, perhaps.
Sorry, yeah, just quickly, I wanted to kind of try and bring us on back onto a track, because there was something that Paul said I was curious to hear you expand on.
Yeah, absolutely, Asparagus. By the way, the Vegan 2.0 app is vegan2.org. So you can share this around. You can have people, encourage people to sign up. If I log in, you'll see what it looks like. This is your dashboard. I need to edit my goal. Oh, okay, this is reset to defaults, annoyingly. And look, this is the most exciting part. I'm not number one. This is Felix Werderman, who we spoke to on the channel, and he has given over 100,000 euros to effective animal charities. And he is mocking me here, which I'm very pleased about. 387,000 animals saved. That's our estimate based on Felix's donation record. That's quite something, isn't it? You can put in your charitable donations. Oh, look at that, I've donated $30,000 total. And saved 123,000 animals. That's pretty good. I must have just ticked over 30k. I have monthly ones on here so that it refreshes, it updates itself each month. Although that said, these all look a little bit old. Here's conversions. There's a few of my buddies who I've got to go various shades of vegetarian. Only saved 800 animals in this method. I actually haven't recorded all the... I put some of my family members on here and stuff as well, so there's definitely people I could add to this. What else have we got? Campaigns. This is Humane League, Fast Action Network. Also, definitely need to update this. 20 animals, 20 emails, 33 social. Nah, we've got some more than that by now. I don't know exactly how many it is going to be, but there's, since last filled this in, I'm going to say I've sent at least 30 emails at the very least. Social media actions, I'm going to say at least 50. Phone calls, letters, we didn't do them. We've got some others here. Oh, whoops. Yeah, absolutely, Tone. There should be a way to do that, hey. Well, I guess you would do it like this, right? You could do 22 days omnivore to vegan in here. So this is how I'm going to add a new person. This guy went vegetarian, I want to say like 4 years ago, something like that. Leave the end date open if they're still vegetarian. So starting diet before conversion, omnivore diet after conversion. vegetarian in this case. Oh no, pescatarian. My influencer. You can turn up how much credit you get to take for each of these people, right? I'm gonna say that this is a good. I'm gonna say this is a good 50%. And I'll add him in there. Give me 50% credit for a person going from omnivore to pescatarian for 4 years. And I've upped my animal saved count as a result. So this is vegan2.org. I'm hoping this would catch on and encourage people to take part in impactful activism. We got our leaderboard over here. We're number 2. Felix Werderman number 1. This guy Joe Tate in 3rd. And we've got a long tail of people who have done some amount of something. So yeah, I'll be happy if this catches on. It looks like I spotted 1 or 2 things that I could tweak on this. We do have a feedback form here as well, but I don't think I've had any responses in that yet. But that's vegan2.org. That's the Vegan 2.0 app. I appreciate that, Sparrow. Thank you for saying that. Most vegan person, yeah, true. Most vegan 2.0 person, that's great. Yeah, that's very true. It's difficult to know sometimes, isn't it? About the planting the seeds and how it kind of manifests further down the line.
You said when we were comparing to...
Yeah, good idea, Tone. I'll do that.
Other injustices, because we're back onto justice now, and Paul had said, you said that obviously this one is the most entrenched one ever, so it needs to be dealt with in a different way from Paul's perspective, and that's why he goes the way he goes. But I want to actually look into another injustice that was arguably as entrenched, if not more entrenched, than how we treat animals, and that was actually human slavery. I think humans, maybe just after animals, is the first currency. Like, it was very, very similar time periods where animals and humans were currency, depending on obviously your ethnicity or in recent years your surname. Even you were born into slavery, right? Or enslaved by another tribe or whatever. And so Tobias, I mean, you write about this and how the West started to fight back against that, and actually the West went...
Yeah, good question, Asparagus. I think, I mean, I definitely would. I don't actually... I guess that's like another level of developing it, hey? But yeah, that seems like it'd be worth doing. I guess it's just like a web app that you can get in your Safari browser or something at the moment. But it probably looks underwhelming on a phone, I imagine.
And to other countries and try to free slaves in other countries even, and that became like a real moral thing. And you've written about how we got there through incremental change. It didn't just happen overnight. It actually took a long time of incremental change for people to have this sort of moral revolution, and how that, you know, if we have to do that for humans, the idea that we don't have to do that for animals seems a little naive, right? So could you get into that as a discussion? I'd love to hear what Paul's take on that is as well, and that seems like a kind of juicier way for us to go, because I don't think you're not criticizing AV, so I don't know if that's a useful thing for us to keep discussing, so you're actually supportive of AV.
Yeah, so I mean, comparing or relating to these other causes, and particularly slavery, I mean, I'm mainly making the point that also in the case of slavery, we have been incremental. But Paul has a good point saying that we don't necessarily know that it was the best way to get us where we are. You know, like, it's not because there was incremental change, and there was a lot of incremental change in the past, that was the fastest way. So it doesn't really prove anything, but it only shows that people have done it, and that we don't need to be afraid or whatever of I don't know, like being unjust or betraying anybody, or not taking a cause seriously enough, by not being absolutist about it, by not saying like, every time and everywhere, this is wrong and it needs to stop now. I mean, that's not what abolitionists did. That's not what feminists did. That's not what, I mean, parts of these movements did. They all did incremental activism. And for instance, the anti-slavery activists, the abolitionists, they were talking for a long time, for decades, they were talking about the abolishment of the slave trade, not about the abolishment of the slave institution. They were talking about other arguments. They used arguments like the economy, that slavery was actually bad for the economy. They used arguments like slavery is bad for, transatlantic slave trade is bad for the British sailors, for the white sailors, for their health. There's so many who are dying. So it's not wrong, I think, to use other arguments. And I think that sometimes I say that sometimes the best, and you might very much disagree with this, Paul, but sometimes I think the best thing to do for animals is not to talk about them. That might sound contradictory, but if we know that people get triggered or will be they will show reactance to something, and reactance is like a really important thing. Like that's something I'm afraid of, actually, that with many people, when you use certain tactics like guilt, etc., they actually do get reactive, and they are going to look for defending their position, and sometimes even start eating more meat. So this pragmatism and this flexibility of approaches is some.
I'm a little bit skeptical about they'll start eating more meat. I do think that these kind of people are eating as much meat as they want to, and they're not going to eat beyond when they're full to just to spite the vegans. But I think the way of thinking about it is they'll become less likely to reduce if there is some sort of reactance, backlash going on. I also think that's more rare than we might worry.
Something that I would recommend, but at the same time, I'm also, like I said, not against using that very direct approach.
I think there's just I think there just seems to be a misunderstanding of the work that we do, because we have done your approach. I've done it. I did it many times. We did it. Like I said, people were showing up to Cubes for years, just saying whatever they wanted to say, and most people are not very strong in their outreach. So
here's a little break for a study on that point, by the way. This is a meta-analysis. Interventions to reduce meat consumption by appealing to animal welfare. Meta-analysis and evidence-based recommendations. So this is like centering the animal in the message, basically. They said animal welfare, but they mean any kind of assessing interventions designed to reduce meat consumption or purchase by mentioning or portraying farm animals. You measure behavioural or self-reported outcomes related to meat consumption, purchase, or related intentions. The control condition. The interventions consistently reduced meat consumption, purchase, or related intentions, at least in the short term, with meaningfully large effects. Meta-analytic risk ratio 1.22. We estimate that a large majority of population effect sizes was stronger than 1.1, so there's like a 10% reduction, I guess. And that few were in the unintended direction. This part here is really the bit that I was looking for, right? Backlash is kind of rarer than we might think. There's few of these 100 studies looking at mentioning or portraying farm animals with the intention of reducing meat consumption. Few were in the unintended direction. So I do think it's kind of it's rarer than we might worry, this backlash effect.
They ended up saying eating less meat. You know, they ended up saying things that were vegetarian messages, that were welfarist messages.
Yeah, true, Asparagus. I've seen those where it's like how much water have you saved and stuff like that. Yeah, true, mugging all the other apps. Hey, Veganosaur, how are you doing? Thanks for being here.
They were avoiding making people feel guilty. They were focusing on being liked as a priority. They were pandering, you know, they were doing all these things. So yes, I did come from a position of being interested in my health, and I ended up plant-based as a result of that before I was vegan. So that's exactly why I am confident about my position currently. This is exactly like why I know that I didn't need to go through the plant-based diet to get to veganism. I didn't need to reduce in order to understand that I'm disrespecting animals and that I have no right to do that. If I had stumbled across Gary Yourofsky's speech before I was plant-based, I would have become vegan instantly.
I'm not sure if you could
I
know
wish that had happened. No, we don't know that. But the fact that I started on a plant-based diet is, I feel like you were making the case that worked for me, so it must work for other people. But actually, the opposite is true in my case, because I know for a fact that I was the kind of person that was seeking truth. So yeah, we will never know because it didn't happen that way. But I know that I was on a path, and that if someone had given me this truth, I may have reduced a little bit before.
Yeah, that's kind of true, actually, Asparago. I think we talk about reduced meat to mean like reduce animal products. When you're having these kind of conversations, people kind of use them interchangeably. But yeah, that is an interesting observation. You don't really hear like less dairy as a thing talked about.
Or actually committing, but it would have happened a lot sooner.
Yeah, milk-free Mondays.
I would have become vegan and actually spoke up for the victims. You know, that's something that, I mean, at least I'm in my heart, I know that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, like I said, we've already tried your approach on thousands, you know, countless people on the streets. So, you know, while you're saying that you support AV and that you're not trying to talk badly about our approach, I also hear you saying things like, yes, but making people feel guilty doesn't work. But actually, we're proving that that's the only thing that works the best.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works on some people. Like, I mean, there's one research by one study by Bryant Research that distinguishes very clearly the meat conscious people and the people who what they call the shame resistors. And the first group, and I think you're trying to identify that first group, the people who are ready, the people who show some openness. With them, the guilt can work. And in as far as you talk to those people with that message, I think it's all good. I'm not against guilting, but I'm just afraid of using guilt when you do it with people who are not open to it and where it's not conducive to change, and they will show reactance and it will get worse for them. You see?
Okay, and this is based on the idea that if we ask them.
So we had this is the paper landing page. My idea with this project was I'd seen a term called flight shame that was an environmentalist thing. I think it was translated from Finnish or something like that. Flygskam, I remember, was the term. Might be Swedish. And I was trying to see, can we come on an analogous thing here, right? What's the kind of embarrassment, the shame that you feel if you're like a self-conscious meat eater? Yeah, that's wholesome, eh? Just make the law the animal product should have written what has to happen to animal to make them. Yeah, well, we're trying to do that in the UK. I've got over here the where are the welfare labels? Here we go. These are the welfare labels that are being proposed in the UK at the moment, where you're going to have 1 to 5 levelling on all pork and poultry products. This is what's being proposed at the moment. And you will see in this case, how like a lot of these are ending up with a level 4 or level 5 low welfare. I I think it's really important to have this be mandatory on all animal products, because at the moment we have a system like this, right, where we've got first of all a bunch of these different logos that kind of look similar and mean different guarantees, but it's not that easy to tell them apart. And if something has the red tractor, for example, people think, oh, that's good, that's, you know, that's assured, you know, tick for animal welfare. The red tractor is basically an industry one that they've hatched and has the legal requirement, is barely above the legal requirements. The RSPCA standard, for all its criticism and like imperfect application, is much higher than the red tractor standard. I think the Soil Association is higher than that as well. But it's not obvious when you look at these, right? Like who knows which of these is the better welfare standard? And more importantly, because they're not mandatory, if you're running a factory farm, you just don't have to put anything on there at all. So the products on which we'd want these labels the most, if it's optional to tell you, that you're only going to be told if it's good news, right? So that's why it's so important to have a mandatory welfare labels, exactly as you're saying, Gunnar. And yes, you're absolutely right. That is the other big problem that comes with this, or with, you know, increasing domestic welfare standards, is if there is low welfare imports still coming into the country, then that's going to undermine it. It's basically just going to move the nasty cheap production abroad. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, look, if they have higher standards, then I guess I'm voting for that over the alternative, but yeah. And here's the other thing as well, like if you are selling something like this to a government, you know, trying to get them to adopt it, you are going to have to put it in terms of their objectives for, you know, economic growth or food security, whatever it may be. So even if the people working on it are animal people, they're probably not going to say it in that context. I think that's Tobias's point, by the way, about sometimes the best message for animals is not talking about the animals. He's really talking about, I think, in an institutional context where, again, they're going to have targets around costs, they're going to have targets around emissions, maybe food safety, and if you are talking about animal suffering, it's going to be a signal to them that you are not in tune with their objectives. If you just put it in terms of things that they have on their KPIs and need to speak to their boss about when they meet them next month, then you're talking their language.
Them to quit animal exploitation, to reject it completely, that this is not going to be as effective as asking them to reduce over time.
Yeah, I mean, this particular study is about, when people are told that they are complicit in animal suffering and animal exploitation, that they will see a need to justify what they're doing, and they will get more entrenched in what they're doing rather than the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have people reacting negatively to this. This was a survey and a focus groups that went along with it. Yeah, and we identified meat-conscious consumers who had negative feelings in response to their meat consumption levels and their contribution to the harms of meat production and demand. And then meat shame resistors, who are the group that Tobias is talking about, resistant to the concept of being shamed for their meat consumption, do not believe there's any reason to feel meat-related shame. I think my main takeaway from this is basically prioritize who you're talking to. Guilt-focused campaigns may be effective with meat-conscious consumers, but could prompt disengagement from meat shame resistors. Therefore, whilst animal advocacy campaigns should focus on animal welfare, a wide variety of health, environmental, and financial concerns be considered appealing to meat shame resistors. Yeah, actually, that is. Yeah, it's basically an opportunity cost of the other things that you could be talking to them about. The typical thing, I always imagine people in this meat shame resistors category to be like overweight middle-aged men, basically, and often they are. Talking about hey, this could really reduce your cholesterol and reduce your chance of having a heart attack, is probably going to be more compelling for those people. And much like with the institutional decision makers, maybe you don't want to give the game away to those people that you're actually concerned with animal suffering, because maybe they're going to be less likely to take your health advice in that case. So yeah, these meat shame resistors, people that he's talking about, are probably best reached with other messages through other means. If you can get them to say this is about your own health, for example. And by the way, they're probably these are going to be in the category of people who their health will really benefit if they eat less meat. At least the obese people that I'm imagining. Yeah, cigarettes have the graphic pictures and messages on cartons, cautioning the consumer why not animal products. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I think that the cigarette packaging thing is a really good analogy to learn from, and that's been massively effective. The rates of smoking cigarettes have gone down massively. Let's have a look at this, actually. Cigarette smoking over time graph. Let's do UK. Share of adults who smoke. We've not got years here. It's not particularly helpful. Look at this, is more like it. 50 years ago, almost half of adults in Great Britain smoked cigarettes. Now only 1 in 10 do. This is hopium, isn't it? That's bloody good progress. This is from something that's really, really addictive and difficult to get people to give up on an individual level. And that is a really encouraging reduction. And this is from all the... There's been a ton of legislation that's helped this along, right? And I'll tell you what as well. At each stage, if you were a smoking abolitionist, you might have said, you know, the ban on smoking in pubs was a big part of this. You know, the pub ban was not enough because people are still going to be smoking. And it might give the impression that it's okay to smoke as long as you're not in a pub. People, I'm sure, like, well, I don't think people were saying it in this case, but this is kind of how I hear the all or nothing kind of mindset with respect to veganism. It is going to be a, you know, we'll be lucky if we can get the decline to be this steep. That is bloody hopium, I'll tell you. 50% of adults 50 years ago, and now only 1 in 10. Honestly, I want to say I'm kind of surprised that it's as high as 1 in 10, really. I've seen that. I really don't... You really don't see many people smoking cigarettes at all now, especially now that vaping is such a big thing. I don't wonder if this counts vaping. If it did, you might see it going back up. Who knows? But this is great hopium. I mean, we have a blueprint for how to dramatically reduce quite addictive, harmful behavior in a relatively short space of time. Same data represent a bit different smoking consumption. That's a bit funny wording somehow.
I think that people will do that from our experience regardless. You know, even if you ask them to reduce. And I think that I'm not sure, I haven't seen the actual studies that you're referring to, and I'm not in academia.
I'm not either.
So I'm not going to try and act like you're not. Okay, well, I'm not going to try and act like I know how to read scientific studies, but I feel like a lot of these things are based on surveys and questionnaires. People that are answering like, who cares what non-vegans say? You know, yes, I'm going to reduce. Does that mean they actually reduced? Or if they said, yes, I agree that a softer approach is more effective than a more hardcore approach, who cares what they have to say?
Yeah, I would definitely be skeptical of that second fact. So, I mean, there are kind of problems with survey data where you're essentially getting people's opinions about what they think, which is not necessarily what they actually think, or rather people are telling you sometimes what they think you want to hear, and so they might be overstating the extent to which they're going to reduce their meat consumption. Definitely you wouldn't ask people what approach they think is more effective. You would do like an experimental. We gave some of the people this message and gave the other people this message, and then ask them all the same questions and see like a higher percentage saying that they're going to reduce. Now, still, you'll have some criticism as like, there's going to be a lower percentage of people who actually follow through rather than just tick the box in a survey. Yes, I'm going to eat less meat. I think that's kind of the point that he's making here about the fallibility of self-report in surveys. I don't think he probably meant to say who cares what non-vegans think. Obviously, we do need to care what non-vegans think. We don't need to agree with it, but we do need to understand it and be able to interact with it. I'm assuming that he didn't mean to say that, but there are some valid criticisms we made of survey research in general.
Vegans are constantly trying to tell vegans how to do activism. Vegan activists who have done this for any significant amount of time.
I will say this must be really frustrating if you are someone who does vegan activism of the variety that Paul does, because certainly in the spaces that I exist, we like to have a lot of like, beard stroking conversations about, I wonder if this method's going to be better than that. And perhaps this, perhaps they're doing it wrong and so on. I've never been and done a cube. And it's quite easy for me to sit on YouTube and talk about maybe he's full of shit or whatever. I mean, I don't think I have said that right. I've been quite even-handed, I think. But yeah, obviously that's got to be frustrating from the perspective of the activist to have, people who are not doing activism telling you, or seem to be telling you that you're doing it wrong.
I know not to take their advice. They just know that this is not valuable. And
that's another thing, definitely. Yeah, people would say in a survey, yes, I think a less aggressive approach would be more effective, because they're hoping that whoever reads the survey is going to then conclude, okay, we should do a less aggressive approach and they'll be less likely to be aggressed upon in the future. So that's a pretty garbage. Yeah, we wouldn't, like I said, we wouldn't ask that in a survey, but if you did, I can tell you what the answer would be, and it wouldn't be a very reliable one.
Incredible advice. So I just don't know why we would base studies on those kinds
Hot scam, yeah, that's what we need, hot scam.
of things if that's what they're based on. And I think people just pay lip service a lot of the time and say, yes, I am against factory farming. Okay, then why do you continue to eat animals that are factory farmed? Like, it just makes no sense. People are responsible for factory farming while saying they're against it in almost all cases when they say that. Mm-hmm. So I just don't care what they say. I care about people's actions, which is, I thought, how we all judged other people, not based on their words, especially when their words contradict the very actions they're talking about. So, yeah, I mean,
So
there are some valid criticisms to make of this kind of research, and I totally accept that it's going to be frustrating when it seems to be saying something that's not in line with your experience. I mean, honestly, I think I would really benefit from being, and I have benefited already just from like listening to activists talking about this on YouTube and seeing activists doing activism on YouTube. Us lobbying, suit wearing, sitting behind a desk types do have a lot to learn from the people who are doing it and having the conversations and doing activism IRL. There is, valuable information there, and it is very different to the context of a lot of research. I think we can certainly, both types of vegans, learn from each other.
I also want to, I shared a study with David just now, since I know that this is the language you speak. I mean, I know you're not in
Good cut back off, yeah, maybe.
in academia, you've just clarified that, but you do refer to studies a lot. There is one study I'd like to pull up, and this was, you just said 30 seconds on ChatGPT. You had said that earlier. Well, this only took 30 seconds on ChatGPT to pull up as well. And, you know, this is my problem with studies as well, is that I could pull up things, you could pull up things, we can go back and forth, but we're out here in the real world actually doing the work on the ground. You know, I think that we're proving what the most effective outreach approach is. But this study shows that people, David, do you want to read it out, or do you want me to? Because I don't actually have the study.
I will say Tobias seems to have like a little bit of better grasp of, I don't want to say this, like how you could prove that something is more effective or not. And I really appreciated that concession from Tobias earlier, by the way, which Paul scored a point. I don't know if he was aware of this concession as much as I was, but Tobias said, well, if we look to previous social justice movements, there has always been incrementalism in the anti-slavery movement and the feminist movement and so on. It has always been done this way. And Paul said, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the best way of doing it, which is true. And Tobias said, yeah, that's true. Now, I do think there's going to be something about, presumably there were hardcore abolitionists in those movements and incrementalists. And like I always say, ultimately, these are working in tandem. And it's very cool that in this conversation, both of them have said at various points, like, I don't actually disagree with what you're saying. I think it is okay to be doing that approach. I think it's a great demonstration of the different types of approaches that are available to different personality types in doing this kind of work. There are some people who just wouldn't want to be behind the desk, and that's cool. And they're doing valuable stuff. Clearly, Paul's done a ton of valuable stuff. But yeah, let's see what study he's got here.
Study in front of me. I just sent it to you because I'm using my phone as a
I
mic.
can read
If
this.
you want to read it out?
So it's we'll have to, like, I'll tell you what, I'll read it out and then I'll check if ChatGPT actually accurately, because sometimes it gets confused. But all right, gradual versus abrupt smoking cessations. It's about smoking. It was a randomized control trial of 700 adult smokers in England who all planned to quit. They all received counseling and nicotine replacement therapy. They were randomly assigned to either quit right now, abruptly, keep smoking as usual, and then just quit on a certain date, or they were advised to do it gradually, reduced by 75% over 2 weeks, and then quit. And they were doing it to see which one would work better. They said the results were the abrupt group had a higher abstinence than the gradual group. So the ones who just stopped, they stuck to it better. And
fair play. That's a pretty good point. That's I mean, that is in a good point for Paul's perspective. I'll have a look at that study. That's quite cool. I've not seen that before. Randomly assigned to either stop smoking right now or gradually reduce your cigarettes. And the gradual reduce group were less likely to actually follow through and quit. Interesting, they're both starting with the goal of quitting completely in mind. But the gradual group were less likely to do it. The other thing that surprised me on this, which we were looking at the other day, is that VOMAD graph where 50% of the people... Oh, bloody hell, look at this. My new computer going, and it's not got any of my old links in it. So I have to take it a whole extra click to Google it and then click on the link. Well, we looked at this yesterday, didn't we? But there's the 50% who went straight vegan overnight. And there's the 37% who went gradually. So two points in favor of the straight transition, which definitely I would be the kind to have some skeptical about that and say maybe the reduction is the way to go. But yeah, good point from Paul.
After 4 weeks, after 6 months, the abrupt quitting group, the ones who just quit immediately, they had significantly higher rates of abstinence, so that they were stopping. They were more likely to stop, and advising people to stop on a completely on a set date, they claim contributed to more lasting behavior change than gradual. Oh shit. So I can go look that and just make sure it's legit while you two talk about it. I'll go and look that up.
Yeah, look, I mean, like I said, Tobias, I don't like arguing from the position of studies when it comes to a justice movement as atrocious. Let me put it like this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but just to
I feel like he's unnecessarily glossed over that W. He did have a study that showed that sudden transition had more impact, at least in the case of smoking. But okay, he's not gonna dance on it.
refresh on what we're talking about here, this is unlike the civil rights movement, unlike any of the other justice movements that have ever existed, because of the fact that we talked about that it's so heavily entrenched in society. Like, everybody's responsible for this except for the small percentage of vegans, right? But then the other fact is that this atrocity
Yeah, I was also a procrastinating vegetarian for a good few years.
is so great in scale. We've never had more victims that have been victimized to a single injustice ever. Like, nothing even comes close. You know, some people refer to the Jewish Holocaust as a comparison to the animal Holocaust. But the reality is that the animal Holocaust, like, when you compare the numbers, it's actually a mockery of how large the injustice is. Like, we're talking about 3 trillion victims per year. I don't know of any other injustice in the world that has even come close to 1 billion, let alone 3,000 billion in 1 year. So in the history of humankind, it's like these numbers are so staggeringly large that I think we absolutely need to be careful to not say, well, this worked for this other movement, so we should do the same.
I would be hammering home that smoking cessation study right now. I just had a study that showed a big dub for your position.
Same thing with this.
Paul,
That
just
was not my
to
The
argument.
issue's too great.
That was not
We
my
need-
argument.
okay,
Oh, okay.
just to intervene 1 second on that study before.
Well, I felt like what
Okay.
David was saying was that I thought David said it was naive to extrapolate that we shouldn't be doing what other
What I
justice
would say
movements-
with this argument is, like, at least we can see, that's the very least we can say, that other movements have done this too. But I agree with you, it doesn't guarantee that this was the best track towards success. That's impossible to prove, unfortunately.
Plus, we still have slavery, like you said.
Right, yeah, but it's just not.
We still have slavery.
But
in
we
the
have,
world.
yeah. My point was that
yeah.
we only have one example of something even remotely close to this when we look at human slavery, something that's been around since like the dawn of civilization, and it was actively an active injustice against sentient beings, but actually humans, which makes it even more like, wow, can you even believe that happened? Like, that's absolutely wild. And even with that movement, they only succeeded through incremental change. That was kind of the point, that it's like, if you're going to need incremental change to fix that problem, the idea that we won't need it to fix this problem could be naive, but it's not a guarantee. It's just, that was kind of my premise to put forward to have you guys discuss. Before I let you go on to the next point, sorry, that study, just one thing I wanted to point out about that study that is important. They only monitored them up to 6 months. And so what we don't know, we only know that it worked up to 6 months, but we don't know what happened after 2, 5, or 10 years. And now it might turn out that the ones who are gradually reducing continue.
Yeah, it kind of seems unlikely. I feel once you're a few months into having stopped smoking, or you're still smoking, I'd be surprised if it turned around after 6 more months or years. I mean, yeah, I think that study was pretty good, Dub.
Continued gradually reducing for 10 years, whereas the ones who abruptly stopped started smoking normally again after 2 years. And this is, that's actually, there is some not very good data on people, vegans, and it's not good because people self-identify as vegans and then they say, I quit veganism, so it's not reliable. But there is some indication that this does happen, that people who reduce tend to just reduce forever, or for a very long time. But some people who go, right, that's it, I'm vegan, some of them, they see it as all or nothing, and so they just they just flip the switch when they decide, oh, actually no longer. But they usually weren't as connected to the animal issues. That sort of supports your position as well, Paul. It's sort of in between both of your positions, the kind of data on that, as far as I understand. But anyway, that was just to bring some nuance to that study anyway, in that it's interesting, but unless it gives us 10 years, we don't actually know if it was like a long-lasting thing. Or maybe they all just went back to smoking, you know what I mean? It could be that none of it worked, right? Anyway.
But this is why I said, like, I'm showing you this study,
yeah,
but I don't like arguing
no,
through
for sure,
studies.
for sure.
I think it's a poor way to argue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a smaller I think it was a pretty small caveat to that study. I think overall it was in the direction, it was in Paul's favour.
This
it's just because we referenced it. I just felt a responsibility to make sure we dealt with it before we kept going on. That's all. I wanted to just make sure it was like nuanced.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did, because I didn't necessarily think it was.
Can I say something about
all-proof argument?
Of course you can. This is a discussion between you guys. I'll shut up again for another 10 minutes. Go for it.
Yeah, just a bit on the meta level about studies. I mean, we can prove a lot or disprove a lot with studies. I don't want to disvalue.
Yeah, it's a really good thought, Asparagus. That seems like a pretty tractable way to go, hey? Definitely the stages of change model leading to, you know, having been used in addiction research and being applicable also in meat reduction research as well, I think is useful.
Validate your experience on the street. It's important too. I just don't want to say that, like, I don't agree that, like, oh, who cares what meat eaters say? They're the audience that we want to reach. We should care about them. We should care what they say. They might not say always the truth, but there are some ways to get at the truth with experiments, etc. So we can sort of invent ways to get at what they think and what they feel about these things. So let's just not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And there is also some things that are more solidly proven than others. I mean, the research on guilt and shame seems pretty consistent, for instance. Anyway, that's just on scientific research. I just want to come back to that thing about slavery. So.
Which, by the way, when he says this, I don't, well, as you said earlier, actually, Tobias is not necessarily opposed to guilt and shame, and it does work for people who are that way inclined. Most of the research I've seen on shame for motivating behavior change, I think that it's easy to say and to think that shaming people is bad just because it kind of sounds like that's a bad word, right? Shaming is bad. But the question is, does it, it serves a purpose. In some cases, it's appropriate to feel ashamed for certain things, and it's healthy for society if people feel ashamed to be, racist or whatever else, right? There's clearly shame is appropriate and good and beneficial in some situations. The thing that is found on shame is that it can motivate behavior change very well if it's from a group that you care about, basically. If it's from a group where you value their opinion of you. If your family is shaming you for doing something, yeah, it's probably quite motivating for you to not do that thing. But if a random group of whoever, people who are not connected to you are shaming you for doing something, who cares, right? You're not going to be concerned about that. So I think that's pretty much what is found on that. But yeah, I don't think shame and guilt, like, these are helpful emotions and healthy things to feel in some circumstances, and good for society that people feel these things in some circumstances. So yeah, even if they're kind of bad words or negative, we think negatively when we think of these things. I don't know. Right, I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. We'll finish this debate another time. Put the link in chat if people want to go and watch it. We are at just about the 1 hour mark on here. So we've got 43 minutes left for probably tomorrow, when I will finish up streaming this. We also saw Plant Geezer on the at the abattoir. And we also read Lewis Bollard's Neither Inevitable Nor Impossible Substack. Let's have a little look on Fast Action, see if they've got anything more for us before I call it. No, they haven't been updated in a little while. I have to... Oh, look at this. I've got some more things on here that I could be doing. Okay, I don't have Twitter. Okay. Alright. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you. And I will be back tomorrow when we can finish watching this. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.